with me as I get organized here. All right, welcome to the joint meeting of the RTM this evening for committees. Our first item is to consider and act upon the following appointment to the Greater Bridgeport Transit Authority as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. Michael Mears. Yes. Welcome, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening. So many of us know you from your former service as an RTM member, and I know you did work on the pension board. If you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit why you're interested in doing this.
Sure. I've been a resident of Fairfield for about 20 years, resident of Connecticut for 30. I've served in different positions on the RTM. I was previously on the board of the pension board, Board of Finance, appointed by Mike Tetro. I was on that board for almost 5 years, but I had to resign from that board because it turned out to be a compliance issue with my firm. I feel I added a lot of value to that board, and it was unfortunate, the disparity with my firm in that. But this board is running the Greater Bridgeport Transport Authority, which runs all the bus schedules for Fairfield, Trumbull, and the surrounding areas, and Bridgeport. They manage all the buses and the senior buses. Their total revenue comes from the State Department, from the Department of Transportation in the state of Connecticut, and they have about a 35% return. And my interest was, Mike asked me to, he thought I added value to the Board of Finance, so he thought I could add value to this board. Not that I know anything about buses. I don't really know anything about buses, but it's more of managing the schedules, managing the finance of the transportation area, looking for keeping the cost of bus transportation low and reducing the amount of expense it costs to maintain the buses. There's also union areas where you're dealing with the union contracts and understanding how the employees fit in and what that pay scale works in with the business. So it was very interesting to me because I know nothing about buses, but I do have and have proven myself to work well with boards, work well with teams. I think I'm rational in most of my decisions, and it just seemed like a great opportunity to learn more. It's out of my comfort zone as far as knowledge, because I'm more of a finance person, but it is a very interesting field to go into, and it looks like with my skills in finance and budget managing, there seems to be a need there. Plus, I also had a long talk with Doug Holcomb, who's been on the board of directors there for a long time, so we had a very interesting talk about how the board runs and what the goals are for this year and that stuff. So.
Great. Does anybody have any questions? Excellent.
No questions?
You're over there. He's over there. All right. I thank you very much for your willingness to serve.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Enjoy your night.
Brian, you're down here.
You're over here.
Next up is the establishment of the Holland Hill Building Committee. We have Dr. Title, Anthony Calabrese, Tom Cullen, Sal Morabito. This is just to walk through the timeline, right?
Yeah, I think for this particular item, I'll just walk through this with you, and then maybe when we get to the later items, I'll have back up here.
Okay.
So the establishment of the Holland Hill Building Committee is part of the timeline that was in your packet. We designed a way to get this project done so that the town will get, first of all, we'll be able to get the 2 temporary classrooms that we need there immediately, and we'll get design work done on this project so that when it comes back for the full approval for the full amount, the town has a much greater cost certainty around the final project numbers. So we've worked hard to come up with a plan to do that, and in order to make that happen, we need a building committee moving very rapidly, and the reason for that is that if the money is approved and we have a building committee, that we can get full reimbursement for all of these costs, including the cost of the temporary classroom and the design costs. If there's money and we're spending it, but there's no building committee, then there's no state reimbursement, which runs around 25 to 27%. So in the timetable that's in front of you, we're hoping that you will approve a building committee this month so they can begin meeting in early March so we can expedite the Holland Hill project which will keep the costs down. It also give us the greatest certainty that we can, in fact, expand the buildings to meet the burgeoning enrollment there for this coming September. So that's why we need the building committee right now, and that's how it fits into the timeline.
Great. And just so everyone knows, this is item number 4. Resolved that the town of Fairfield establish the Holland Hill Building Committee, authorize the preparation of schematic drawings and outline specifications for the project, and authorize the Board of Education to file an application for the school building grant. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Title related to the project? Seeing none, thank you very much. Move on to item number 5. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments to the Holland Hills School Building Committee as recommended by the Board of Selectmen. First up, Captain Ackley.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and the experience that you bring to the building committee.
I spent 37 years on the Fairfield Fire Department, 12 of which were spent as the town's fire marshal. I served on the town's condemnation board and town's building committees. I served on the Riverfield Building Committee, and I served on the Thomason Building Committee. I've been very active in the town of Fairfield since approximately 1956, which takes me back to my days in Pequot School. So I can take it back that far, and I've been remaining since I retired in 2000, active in town activities, and I look forward to working with Mr. Quinn on the Holland Hill Building Committee and expediting that rapidly. But I do have one thing to say. I know how, from everybody's position, on how important it is to have the committee members and stuff appear before you at the RTM meeting, and I appreciate that. I will not be able to attend Monday night's meeting because that's my night for my Lenten devotion. Starts at St. Pius, and that's where I will be. So I ask your forgiveness and understanding, but that's where I will be, and I look forward to serving on the Holland Hill Building Committee. And I thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Ackley? Saying none, thank you very much.
And thank you, everybody.
Next up, Jason Lee. Welcome back.
Hi. A lot different on this side. All right. So the one reason I want to be on this Holland Hill committee is I'm a member of the community in the neighborhood, and even more importantly, my daughter is currently a student there. Will be a student there for another year. So I understand what she's been going through since she was in kindergarten to up to the 4th grade. I understand the Holland Hill, the ins and outs, and understand how things in town work and how important communication is, especially in front of the RTM and Board of Finances and things like that. So I think it's passionate to me and for the students that I'm looking to help in the future too. And so I also have some free time during the day now. I used to be I'm in advertising that was with CBS Sports until recently, so I do have some free time.
Sorry. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lee? Mr. Tallman.
Do you have any building experience?
I do not,
Anyone else?
except for being on the RTM the last 2 years.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Quinn.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's deja vu time.
I know, right? Welcome back.
Yeah, I
A
guess.
lot of new members, though, so they might not know.
Yes, I've noticed that.
So just tell us a little bit about yourself and the experience you bring to the committee, why you want to serve.
Well, I was
And don't tell anyone I arm twisted you.
I'm sorry. I spent the last 4 years working on the Riverfield project with my team, and we came out. We finally learned how to do it. So I figured, with this opportunity, we'd be able to now at least have some experience going in. Whereas, you go on these committees and you've never done it before, everything is new. And And it's not so much new building stuff, but the process is new. And so, I think that was the major contributing factor why I decided to join up with Holland Hill. And my granddaughter goes there. So there's a familiar, rationale for that. I've spent most of my life in the food industry. I was CEO of 3 different companies. I was senior vice president of manufacturing and operations, and with 3,000 people reporting to me. So I've had my experiences, and it all played out in Riverfield. We had a really good team that produced, and I hope you all get to see it, a magnificent school.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Quinn? Seeing none, thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you very much for your time.
Next up, Nick Assay. Welcome, Nick.
Hi. Nick Asa. I live on Ruane Street. I am a resident of Fairfield for the last 7.5 years. I have a 2.5-year-old son myself, and one on the way due in May, both planning on sending through the Fairfield Public School System, which I've kind of developed a passion for in the last year or so. I saw this opportunity as a way to get involved and give back to the town. I think even though my kids are going to be right now in the Riverfield district, I felt that this was a good way to, like I said, get involved and give back. I've pretty much my whole career has been in management. I managed an automobile service department, handled several large capital projects and construction projects there. Most of my experience is residential projects, but I figured my management experience and team collaboration, and I also currently own a couple small businesses myself, and have the ability to be available during the day. So when I heard the town was looking to form a committee of people that could move and meet during the day, I threw my hat in the ring, and so that's why I'm here to help you guys out.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Nick? Peter?
Were the experiences in commercial and residential construction?
Yes.
Jill?
Have you ever been to Holland Hill School?
I have not been inside, so no, I've never toured the school. I have been following the talk and everything about the school, and have read up everything about it, so I look forward to the opportunity to get to see it in person, but it sounds like it's in dire need to move forward and get going.
Heather?
You said that you had some construction management experience in the past? Or?
No, I had management experience, and when on the commercial side is when I was the service director at an automobile dealership, and we did several improvements to the infrastructure and the building itself. So I led those, and that was back in 2004, 2005.
And how did you lead those exactly?
I was pretty much the point man of coordinating, getting all the quotes, coordinating the contractor, the subcontractors, making sure we stayed on a timeline within budget. So basically managing the project per se. There was a team of like 5 of us, and I was the point man.
And who was responsible for the expense of the project overall? Was it a private entity or was it?
Yes, it was private. It was a family-owned business.
And how big was the project?
Well, it was a multi-level project over a couple years, so it was close to, I would say, $1 million in total.
And the building itself, I mean, it was a repair, or you were having?
No, it was mostly upgrades and bringing it up to date. So the actual physical exterior structure remained the same. Everything was changed on the inside.
Okay.
Anyone else? Karen or Hannah, sorry.
Businesses?
I have a child safety business. So I've actually been a child passenger safety technician for the last 13 years, and I'm an instructor in the state. So I'm passionate about child safety and so car seat education and installation. And I also own a pet care business in Fairfield and Westport. And my employees go to, the clients' homes. And I'm also a partner in a real estate firm. So I kind of have a lot going on, but it's the nature of it affords me some time during the day.
Anyone else? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, Tom Dombrowski.
Of course, good evening. My name is Tom Dabrowski. I've lived in this town for 45 years. I've been a member of the RTM 3 times elected. I've been a member of the Police Commission. I'm currently the Chief of Staff for Mike Tetro in Town Hall. Prior to that experience, I spent 42 years in the pharmaceutical business. Most of that time, I touched a lot of bases in that area. I took a company from 25, not myself, but we started out with about 25 million in 1972, and when I left there 2 years ago, we were doing $6 billion. It's in Danbury, Connecticut. In my career, I've touched many managerial positions. Sales management, training management, distribution for North America, marketing, market research, and liaison for manufacturing. That would be taking a project from the manufactured finished product after FDA approval, taking it through to marketing, market research, training people for that product, and distributing through the North American market to all wholesalers, chain accounts, retail accounts, making sure that we promoted it correctly. I also sat on the National Wholesale Druggist Association as a member of the marketing team for the United States. On the social side, I've been part of the Pop Warner program for about 10 years. Until I left it, I was the coach and one of the athletic directors. I am a past commander of the VFW. I'm the current adjutant for the VFW. I'm the current quartermaster for the county. I'm open to any questions you want to give me.
Anybody have any questions?
Tommy?
Find time to sleep?
I didn't hear it, Tom.
I said, did you find time to sleep, Tom?
Okay.
I just have one question.
Sure.
If the committee is going to be meeting during the day, how is that going to work with your current work schedule?
I've been advised that I would make time for that.
Okay. You'll make time during the working hours of your town
I'm
job?
sure I could schedule it in.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Any other questions?
Anybody else?
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
Hi, Joe. Next up, Joe Michelangelo. We're going to take to calling you Giuseppe from now on.
That's my alias. Throughout my 30-year career, I've been fortunate to be able to work on a number of school building projects. Early in my career, probably about 25 years ago now in Shelton, we didn't have an owner's rep, so this town staff served as that function. 3 schools almost identical to this: Sunnyside School, Mohegan School, Elizabeth Shelton School, many years ago. I've been employed as a professional engineer for about 30 years. When I got this job in Fairfield in September 2012, one of the things we immediately planning was moving our family to Fairfield. So I had the luxury of not only driving around and learning the roads and learning everything about town, I also had to learn about a neighborhood and a school. So I was fortunate in that regard, and one of the, I picked my neighborhood to live on Figler, and I picked Holland Hill School. So even before we moved into the house, I walked to school, saw everything about the school, and even though I saw some of the physical shortcomings, there were positives about that school that made us choose that school to go to, because I had 3 young daughters immediately into Holland Hill School. So the school was great for us. They've moved on to Fairfield Woods now. But just like, from day one, we worked with Alex Durrell and, bringing food to Operation Hope, and Jason Lee on the grill, and Mrs. Cretella with anything the principal needed. So similarly, I'd like to serve a related but different function on this very important committee.
Excellent. Anybody have any questions? Mr. McCarthy.
Joe, I think it's terrific you want to serve, and we're glad to have you, and we certainly use your expertise. I have one question, though. As you know, by virtue of the fact you're a town officer, by definition, there has been some concern about a possible, your appointment representing a possible conflict with the town charter, excuse me. In the event you were to serve ex officio, would you see that as any problem at all?
Well, as a non-voting member, I don't think I would, carry the same clout. There are the building committee does get plenty of, outside expertise from both the architect and the owner's rep, and even the education department staff. So, I appreciate the, that offer, but I'm not sure if that would, serve the same function.
Okay. Again, this in the event, we're obviously going to exercise this point to make sure that your appointment does not represent a concern or does not represent a violation of the charter. I'm just kind of speculating at this point in time. In the event that were to be deemed as such, and maybe at this point in time it seems debatable at the very least. I'm just trying to find a way through this that would work for everybody, because we certainly want to have you.
Okay.
Representative Walkerman.
I'm a little confused. I saw Mr. Lesser's opinion in our materials, and I'm
Can you use the microphone? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I saw Mr. Lesser's opinion in our materials, and I thought that I didn't realize this was anything to be concerned about. I understood from his opinion that this was okay. But there's more I don't know?
Mr. McCarthy, do you want to address that?
I'm just still struggling with it. The way I read it, I'm not sure that I fully accept that argument. I know it's been discussed. Other attorneys have, I think, on the fence about this. My thought is, if it's a matter of perception that we hold ourselves to a higher standard and err on the side of caution, and rather than head down the road of expedience, where we certainly want Joe on the committee, I'm just looking for a way that we do so in a way there's no question about a conflict. So I don't know what the answer is yet. Personally, I got to tell you, as I read it, by definition, Joe's a town officer. And then I read what Attorney Lesser said. I'm still struggling with his explanation. I'm not sure I fully get it yet. I'm going to go back and reread the. I've read it 3 times, and I'm still struggling with it. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm familiar with covenants, and it's not clear to me. At the very least, it's debatable.
Representative Newman.
are we going to start, he's a town employee, are we going to start looking at like other boards, saying, you're our town employee, you shouldn't be on certain elected boards? We have several boards where there are town employees. Is this, I'm just...
Thank you. Anybody else?
I don't think anyone's arguing you wouldn't be phenomenal in the position. I think that it's clear that you would be a great asset to the board. I think we can all figure this out. This shouldn't be a really complicated thing. So, but please understand that any questioning on the charter should not reflect the desire to have you involved. Because I think hopefully I can speak for everyone up here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I can, that you would be a great asset for this. It's really just a matter of getting clarity on that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anybody else have any questions? Having served on a building committee, there have been times when the building committee has asked the town to do in-kind services, has looked to the DPW to help with leveling off a grass field or taking down a portable or those types of things. Do you see that as a conflict at all, or how would you handle a situation like that if that were to arise?
Yeah, I'd use the same discretion, that I use now whenever we get those requests. We do work with the Education Department, the Board of Ed, frequently on different projects. So once again, where we can, we would pitch in at Holland Hill or any of the other schools that we're involved in.
Okay. And do you see that as a conflict at all with your position as the director of DPW and then also being a building committee member?
No, I do not.
Okay. Thank you. Representative Harrison.
Thank you. I guess I would address this to the moderator. Maybe we can I just want some insight on this. Have we had employees on previous building committees before, or would this be the first time? You may not have the answer tonight, or I don't know who we could direct that to, but I'd like an answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, item number 8, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Board of Finance. Resolved that the bond resolution entitled, "A Resolution Appropriating $1.24 million for the costs associated with the expansion and renovation of Holland Hill Elementary School and the issuance of bonds," is approved. Thank you, Dr. Title. I see you have Vice Chairman Calabrese and Mr. Cullen with you here this evening.
So the details behind this request are in the booklet labeled Proposed Capital Request Projects, as opposed to the non-recurring. So we did 2 booklets this year, one for capital, one for non-recurring. So the details around the Holland Hill project are there. There's a separate document that outlines the process and the timeline for this. So a basic goal of this appropriation is there's 2 goals. One is to get the temporary classrooms in place for September 1st, 2016, and secondly, to go through a very large percentage of the design work for the project so that when it comes back for full approval, we have a much higher degree of confidence in the final number. This is a different way of doing the project from what we've done before. What's really changed the game on this is the whole PCB issue that we've been uncovering as we've gone to different schools, which has blown some of the project estimates out of the water. And because that's now with us, we want to take the design and the development of this project all the way through the environmental testing, as well as a much more detailed level of design, so that by the time the number comes back, while there always can be surprises, by that point, the contingencies in the project should be able to handle the surprises, and that would minimize the chances of a building committee having to come back for a supplemental appropriation or have to drastically change the scope of the project. So that's what's in here, and I think I'll just leave it at that, and maybe we'll answer questions. Pam?
Okay. Anybody have any questions regarding this project? Representative Bateson.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Title. Quick question. This appropriation 1.2, what are we envisioning you coming back for to finish the project?
Well, it's really hard to say at this point because there's, the big unknown on the PCB front, which, again, we just can't project right now. We had originally had a price tag on this project of around $10 million, but that was before the decision was made to make it a 504 school. You may remember that conversation from September. The Board of Ed had actually floated the idea of cutting it back, and our number that we put into the waterfall at that point was based on a scaled-back project. Now that the project is a full-blown 504 school, we think the number will be higher, but at this point, I think it's going to be at least that much, but I couldn't give you the upper limit. But that's gives you a ballpark. I should also point out the money you're going to spend now, this is money you'd have to spend either way on this project. This is not like wasted dollars down the drain. You would be hiring an architect, you'd be hiring all these engineers and consultants and environmental testing. So it's really a down payment on the project as opposed to, say, a seed money that never gets recouped.
So there are no architects or engineers in place as of yet?
All we have is we have hired on a temporary basis an individual to do the architectural work for the 2 temporary classrooms. That work had to start before all of this happened, but that individual would not be part of the long-term design team. Right. So the Board of Ed has funded a small sum for an architect to do the site work for the 2 temporary classrooms, but that's it.
The 2 temporary classrooms, are you going to take down the portables and put up the temporary?
No, well, there are 3 portables there now, portable/temporary. Portable is somewhat of a misnomer. They're not on wheels, you can move them around necessarily. So there's 3 there right now. Those are all still going to be needed for the duration of the construction. The school is terribly overcrowded as it is, and we have music on a cart, and we've got a lot of other problems. And so to make it through the construction period, we're proposing to add 2 more portables, 2 more temporary classrooms for a total of 5. At the conclusion of the project, all 5 of those would go away. So these 2 new ones would be leased. These would not be purchased, and the money that's in the budget accounts for 3 years' worth of lease on these. So similar to what we did at Osborne Hill, when we couldn't use the gym, we leased a portable, and we paid monthly for it, and then at the conclusion of that project, it's gone. So we would add 2. That would give us a total of 5. When the project is done, we wipe them all out.
The estimates you have for all the engineers and whatnot in here, is this just based upon the past 3 elementary school building projects we've done?
Well, actually, we reached out to a couple of firms who do architectural work, obviously without binding them to any firm numbers, and said, this is the scope of the work. What would you estimate this cost would be? Obviously, we would be putting it out to bid. The building committee would put it out to bid and would decide on the actual fees once those come in. But we talked to, actually, Tom did it, talked to 2 different architects that we've worked with in the past on projects for us and said, to do this much work, what would you estimate the cost would be? And that's the number they gave us. Both of them were in the same ballpark.
Madam Moderator, are we at liberty to ask questions on the ed specs, or is that not appropriate at this time?
We don't have any say in what is in the ed spec, but if you have a question about the ed spec, I'm sure they'd be, the Vice Chairman of the Board of Ed is here, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions.
Just a quick thing. I just
Or
want-
not.
In the several projects I participated in, I'm curious as to what replacement addition of lockers. I can't remember, perhaps you can help me out. In Sherman, I think we left the old lockers, didn't we?
We did.
Okay, but in Riverfield, we did all new lockers, correct?
Right.
Yes.
So is that part of this 504 model, that we do all new lockers? Are they needed, or is...
Well, they're desperately
these
needed
negotiable
on
items?
The principal's here. She could testify to the condition of the lockers, but they're dreadful. And see, Sherman was a one-off because we had a cap on that project because of FEMA. And so there was only so much you could do with it. And so when stuff had to go by the wayside, that was one of the things that went by the wayside. That project actually has another phase to go, And we would anticipate in the next phase of the Sherman project, whenever that comes forward, would include the replacement of the lockers. The lockers couldn't be done because of the FEMA cap on the Sherman project. But generally speaking, we try to replace them. If we don't replace them, what happens is they show up in another budget later, and people say, wait a minute, you just spent that much money in that school? How come we're looking at lockers? Example A of that was Fairfield Woods Middle School. So we have them in there. They need to be replaced. We have done that as part of projects before, but sometimes when projects run out of money, they get cut.
Okay, one other thing. In reconciling your long-term facilities plan for Holland Hill, I see 2 classrooms. When I look at this, I'm seeing 5 classrooms. I couldn't reconcile the 2. Does that, the old facilities plan, take into consideration the 3 portables?
Right. Because that was before the school was built out as a 504.
Okay, so that was going to the old...
That's correct. The older proposal.
Okay, so the 504 would require the 5 additional
That's
classrooms.
correct.
And the 5 new classrooms, are those going to be upper grades? 4, 3, 4, 5, or who designates what those classrooms are?
No, they're not. They're designated by the principal. We make them flexible so they can be used for any grade. So that's why we put things like sinks in them and so forth. But generally speaking, we'll try to put similar grades in a wing. But at this point, there's no determination made as to which grades go where. We would wait on that until we get a little farther into the project.
Okay, thank you, Madam Moderator. That's all I had on that.
Okay. Representative Way.
Dr. Title, I can't remember the year in which Osborne Hill was built, and I'm also wondering when was Holland Hill built?
Right, we have that information. If you give us
because
10 seconds, we'll look it up.
I'll
guess the 1950s.
I was asking because of the possibility of the PCB.
All right, so the answer is Holland Hill was built in 1956. Osborne Hill was built in 1958.
So the likelihood of a similar situation is pretty...
Are you talking about with respect to PCBs?
PCBs.
Well, there's one difference,
Okay.
and that is that we recently replaced the windows at Holland Hill.
Oh.
And the windows were the a huge source of the contamination. That's what started the whole Osborne
Exactly.
Hill mess.
I
It
remember.
was a window replacement project. So we at least don't have that part to deal with, and that's typically where you find a lot of it. Now we found it in some other places, and you can never say never, but we think at least there's a chance that if we do find some hazardous materials there, that the amount needed to remediate that would be substantially less. But because we don't know that and we need to go through the environmental testing, that's why we've proposed this process.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Messina.
Will the environmental testing that you're doing up front also test for asbestos and lead?
Yes.
Representative Bateson.
Sorry, follow up on Representative Way. How do we do on the chlorine test for that school?
Actually, that school did very well on the chlorine tests. So it's another reason why we think there isn't a whole lot there.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Representative Tallman.
Hi, Dr. Title. Peter Tallman. I was just curious, you had mentioned you considered a lower capacity because they said we're going from 315 to 504, but the projections really only go out to a capacity of about, or attendance, say, of about 420, 430.
Well, the most recent projections for that school that were just done, which I think we sent out to you, and it was a memo, the board asked for that, actually go a little higher than that. But nonetheless...
is there a smaller model or one in between the 315 and 504?
Well, there's, you can build any size you want, but the Board of Ed and prudent planning, not just our Board of Ed, has tried to maintain a 90% capacity target for the schools, because you just don't know. This is going to be the one and only chance, probably in the next 25 years, that this town will make a major investment in this facility. And you'd hate to miss because you cut back by a classroom or two. If you build a 504 and you end up only seating 450 to 500, 450, 430 in there, it's really not, a big miss. But demographers have been known to be wrong, and so I think what we heard from the community what we heard from the Board of Finance and some RTM members who came to the meeting in September was, don't skimp on this. Build out a little bigger here. This is a part of town that seems to be popular. We've seen really rapid growth in that population of that school in the last 5 to 6 years. I mean, it's just, I remember when I first came here in 2010, it was like Jennings and Holland Hill were about the same size, and Jennings hasn't moved a whole lot, and Holland Hill has just taken off. So at this point, we're playing it safe, but of course, you can always scale it back, but the wisdom at this point is to give yourself at least 10% headroom in it.
Thank you.
Representative Vergara.
Hi, Dr. Title.
Hi.
I attended the last Board of Education meeting on the racial imbalance problem at McKinley. And it seemed evident that building out Holland Hill was integral to the plan for Fairfield in solving that problem. Can you elaborate?
Right. So we have the short version of this is that we are under a mandate from the state to examine all possible ways of solving racial imbalance at McKinley School. And so we commissioned a study to examine whether it was feasible in any way, shape, or form to possibly redistrict to solve that problem. And the bottom line was that if you ever want to redistrict and solve that problem, not that anybody's advocating for that, but if you ever want to do it, there was no solution to that problem that did not involve building out Holland Hill to a 504 school, just because of where it sits, its proximity to McKinley, and the way the neighborhoods are. And that, and the consultant was asked very directly, is there any solution to this problem that doesn't involve building out Holland Hill to a 504? And he said no. So it doesn't mean that that is going to happen. I don't want people thinking that's happening soon, but if that's something that the town ever wants to consider at any point, it would be crucial that the school be built out to a 504 to accommodate that issue.
Go ahead. You still have the floor.
When do you have to respond to the state, did you say?
We have to give them a response by April 6th. However, I'm going to ask for an extension on the homework assignment.
Do you think it would be a sign of good faith by the town in moving on the expansion for Holland Hill?
I think what we want to be able to do is to show that we've invested quite a bit of time and resources into examining this alternative, and that if this is something the town's going to consider, then we need more time to examine this. And so at this point, I wouldn't want the town to take any action that would take that off the table. So I want to show the town we're taking it seriously, we're considering that recommendation seriously, and obviously once they know that that would be a requirement of redistricting, it would not be a good move to take that off the table.
I'd also like to request that everybody on the RTM receive the packet on the racial imbalance, because there were very helpful statistics contained in it that weren't in our packet.
Is that online?
It's online. It's on the school district website, but I can send you the
Can you send
link.
me the link? Okay.
It's a lengthy 44-slide PowerPoint, so we'd probably rather not
Yeah,
print
if you
it.
could send me the link, that would
We'll
be
just send you
great.
the
I'll
link. It's on
forward
our website, but if you don't, so you don't have to hunt for it, we'll send you the link. And it is very informative. I learned a lot.
Especially the elementary facility utilization chart and the elementary capacity and enrollment projections that we didn't receive in our packets, but it's very helpful in contextualizing all this.
For those of us who have been involved in this for a very long time, the ultimate goal here is to get rid of portables throughout the district, and that's what this project really,
That's
truly
correct.
is. And build appropriate learning space. Representative McCullough.
Thank you. Just a follow-up. You've referenced a document about projections. Can you give me a date and share with the rest of us where we can find the latest data on projections, and when was that study done, and how far out do the projections go? That's number one. Number two is a question on the assignment of classrooms. Is there a difference by the state in regards to the building of classrooms for K to 2 versus 3 to 5 regarding points of egress that would have an impact on the potential assignment of which level gets into these new classrooms?
No.
Just want to interrupt on the projections came in your packet.
So let me start on the projection part. So specifically with respect. Yep. Yeah, so the 10-year view, the most recent 10-year view was done by Malone and McBroom, which are consulting firm, and those were just completed last month. And those are in the packet that was referenced earlier. However, specifically, we had the Board of Ed had requested, before the ed specs were approved, to get a single projection just for Holland Hill. And so Malone and McBroom wrote the memo that you have in your packet, which is specific to Holland Hill, that goes out to the school year 25-26 and shows a peak of 442 students. So that's an update over the one that was in the ed specs that you were referencing over here. So, but we have the full 10-year projection that was just recently completed in the packet that I'll send the link on. And we don't believe there is any real difference in the costing out of the project depending on who goes in there, but Mr. Cullen wants to make a comment on it.
The only thing I could think of is I know kindergarten classrooms cannot be on a second floor.
We may have our own reason to make classroom rooms bigger or smaller, but the state does not mandate or require any size classroom when you're building.
Anyone else have any questions? Representative Gerber.
I just, not a question, it's more of a statement, just to reiterate something you said early on. I attended the Board of Finance Capital Planning Workshop. You went with a smaller school, and unanimously that group said, we want this done 504. We don't want to look at this should be done with a 25 to 40 year outlook. We don't want to have to look at this school for 40 years. So.
Representative Lynch.
So my question is, when I look at the projections, it seems that the biggest burst in growth is going to come over the next year. And then it goes off. And you indicated earlier that there's already 3 temporary classrooms at this school. So does that factor in that you might want to not do this project when the biggest burden seems to be on there, that you're going to have construction and extra temporary classrooms? Is that a factor?
No, we're trying to solve the problem in the short term by adding the 2 temporary classrooms. Ordinarily, you might just say, well, you got to live with it, and when we finish the construction, then you'll be all set into the foreseeable future. The problem is that the current situation is completely untenable, and therefore we're requesting that there be 2 temporary classrooms there to solve the immediate problem, and then once the project is completed, we'll be set up for the rise that's coming, that's in the projections. So we're handling it both ways. We're gonna
just have to suffer while there'll be this construction, these added classrooms, and this added student load.
Well, they're suffering now. So this is going to provide some relief. So we're working right now with the architect and planning and zoning to site the 2 temporary classrooms in a spot that will be fine for 3 years, but also we asked the architect who's working on this to site them in a place where it's highly unlikely that the addition would go on. So we wouldn't have to have kids in a construction zone. That was one worry. So we think we found a place to do that. But we're still working on that end of it. So we are concerned about that, but we have an immediate problem that has to be solved there.
Representative Vergara.
Will the 2 new portables have bathrooms? Because I know that the 3 existing ones don't, and the kids have to go back and forth between the main building and the portables.
That's not the plan.
No.
We make the kids in the portables tough it out. I will say, I know because I am Grinch-like, as anybody who knows my predilection for closing schools will tell you, that we are because of the security concerns. I don't want to make light of this too much. We have, as part of our project that we funded for infrastructure, to enclose all of the portable classrooms in the district within a security perimeter with fencing, so that the security issues are handled. But we still are going to have the issue of kids going back and forth, but at least they'll be going back and forth within an enclosed area, as opposed to right now, where there is nothing to protect them from external sources.
Representative Garskov.
Thank you. So on the portable question, at first when you were talking, I was thinking that the 2 new portables would handle the construction. But are you saying that you need 5 even if you didn't do a project, you need 5 portables there? Is that
That's
what you're
correct.
saying? So it's not about shifting kids around for construction time. That's not it at all.
No.
It's just getting the kids into space now.
Yeah, it's exactly it. We do need the 5 portable classrooms there now. Right now, and I'm sure you guys have heard parts of it, we've got music on a cart. We've got other specials on a cart. We've got kids being taught in closets. It's just not appropriate for anybody to learn that way. And that's why we're trying to push this project through as fast as we can to get that space. And that's the immediate need right now. Nobody here wants portables. We all agree. We don't want portables. We want brick and mortar. And that's our plan. But unfortunately, it's a process. So to get the relief we need there now, there's no redistricting, solution to this. You can't pocket redistrict these kids. So, and they don't want to go anywhere anyway. We've heard loud and clear from the parents and the community. They want to go to their neighborhood schools. So the 5 portables is the best way to do that.
Anyone else have any questions? Representative McCullough.
I want to follow up on, I don't want the Holland Hill projections. I want the district, entire
Yeah,
district.
he's going to send the link.
Right. That's in the large packet that was presented the other night to the Board of Ed.
Gotcha. Dr. Title, I know there's been some questions from some RTM members about possibly taking a look at the building. I know it's short notice, but would it be possible to work with the principal to maybe...
Principal's here. She loves to give tours. Come on over. Laura Cortella is in the back, so raise your hand so everybody can see. That's Laura. Okay, so you
All right.
put a face.
I'll just ask everybody to, if you're interested in
Right.
seeing the school, please contact me. We don't want the poor
It
Mrs.
would
Perrella
be,
having to take
get a good,
5 tours a day through the
during the day is actually, you really have to see it in action. You don't get the full effect of it seeing an empty building with a bunch of classrooms. You can't get a feel for what's going on there. And believe me, they don't have to put on a show to show you that it's cramped. So, but also it'd be helpful to only do it, minimal number of times.
Right. So if anyone's interested, please just send me an email and we'll see what we can coordinate. Anything else on the Holland Hill project? All right, fantastic. We are on to item number 9, which is establishing the Fairfield Woods Middle School Roof Building Committee and authorizing the preparation of schematic drawings and outline specifications for that project, and authorizing the Board of Ed to file an application for a school building grant. Case in point, doing something piecemeal. This is the Woods roof?
Right. So really this goes with the next item too, so we might as well do them all at once.
Okay, great.
Right, because so this roof is in your capital request project book, the same one that had the Holland Hill project. The roof at the time of the renovation and expansion of Fairfield Woods Middle School was not out of warranty. It was approximately 15 to 16 years old. And warranties are for 20 years. The roof at that point was not failing. Plus, if you replace a roof before it's out of warranty, the state will not reimburse you for it. So once you hit the 20-year mark on a roof, then the state will reimburse you, again, anywhere from 25 to 27%. So that project, had the town wished to replace the roof at that time, would have been 100% paid for by the town. And at the time, there was no reason to do it. So this comes back. This is not a full roof replacement, obviously. The new parts of the building are not being replaced. It's about 100,000 square feet. On the pictures that are on page 6, there's 2 areas, or 3 areas in particular, that show a huge amount of wetness. These are the old sections of the roof, particularly on the bottom infrared, the largest oval there. Everywhere that you see a white spot is where the water is soaked through the roof. as you can see, virtually the entire roof is soaked through. Principal is here if you really want to hear the gory details, but we have a lot of leaks in that building. It is imperative that we move on it. It is past its 20-year warranty, so it's eligible for reimbursement. This is something the town's been very good about, and we've been very accurate with our pricing on this, having done quite a few of these over time. So anything that was new in the project is not being replaced. This is simply the older parts of the building. And because it's a state project, that requires those 3 motions that you read as the first item.
Gotcha. This is items number 9 and 10 related to the Woods roof. Anybody have any questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you.
We're still here.
Yes, you are. All right, non-reoccurring capital.
Okay, that's the other booklet. And this is it.
You sure?
It's the last you'll have to hear from me for a while. All right, so we have in the booklet, and we obviously couldn't reprint it in between. So in your capital non-recurring project booklet, there's 5 projects in there, but only 4 of them are actually going to be in front of you because the Board of Finance has not made a decision on the IT server room renovation project. So that's not before you, so that's not something that, I mean, we can answer questions about it, but it's not on your agenda for approval. The other 4, and they're explained in the book, so I don't have to go too much detail on them. And again, I've got the principal from Dwight is here. The playground retaining wall and stairs project at Dwight Elementary. The last of our really old boilers are the Ludlow High School boilers from 1971. This has been a long road, and we finally see the end. It's a great thing. I couldn't retire until we replaced the boilers. The security infrastructure is a continuation. You remember last year with the security infrastructure, and we had a big debate about this, that we had put in for an amount, and then as it went through the town bodies, before it came to you, there was a decision made to sort of cut it in half because we weren't able to do the whole project in 1 year anyways. And plus there were some questions. We wanted to learn more about some of the projects. So this is back for part 2. The biggest pieces to this, and there's limited information we can give about this in public. The police chief has worked very hard with us on this, but obviously anything in the booklet has got his approval to be made public. The 2 biggest features of this that are still yet to be funded are fully installing interior and exterior cameras in all of our buildings, and hooking all of that into our computer systems, and putting in a product on the glass to prevent somebody from being able to smash and gain entry into the schools. And that required a lot more research, and the police finally landed on a product they could endorse. The product is a little more expensive than the original one, so the price tag's gone up a bit, but they fully believe this will do the job. So those are the 2 biggest parts of the infrastructure, but this was one that was always planned to come back for round 2 of funding. And then the last project is the Cat 6 low voltage project, which is an infrastructure project. Nancy Burns can answer any specific questions you have on that. She's out here. But basically, we have a lot of projectors that we put into all of our schools. We're continuing that project. And without the proper voltage and electrical to put them in, then that puts us at risk. It also will allow us to get ahead of any failures because we'll be able to see the failure or the incoming failure remotely. So before the teacher tries to use the projector and it falls apart, we actually can get out there and fix it. So those are our projects. I'll stop there.
Questions on these projects? Yes. Representative Gale.
I understand the need in these times, obviously, for security measures to be taken very seriously. But I am wondering if there has been any attention paid, particularly by the educators, to the possibility of the effects of the indoor cameras on the cultures and the environment within the schools.
Well, we have to be very careful with where we place indoor cameras. And for the most part, they're not visible to the average person walking around. But there are also certain privacy rules that we have in place where we cannot put cameras. We cannot say that 100% of all occupied spaces in a building are visible to a camera. You can probably imagine what a couple of those spaces are where we would not put cameras. So wherever there's an expectation of privacy, we cannot put cameras there. But by and large, it's a public building serving a public function, and we find that extensive camera coverage is very important as, number one, a deterrent to somebody taking an adverse action, and secondly, after the fact, apprehending a perpetrator of an adverse action, and therefore that's serving as a deterrent. It's very effective. So we're always balancing off those two needs, but in this case, while being mindful of the privacy and culture issues, our first priority is safety of the students and the staff. So we are paying attention to it, and we are involved in, people from our side are involved with the police and with the contractor about exactly where do the cameras go and what angles do they show.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So you're an educator yourself, I assume?
That's what they say.
Okay.
Sometimes I think I'm a budget and roof expert.
So in your
And boiler expert. In my spare time, I try to improve instruction, yes.
So in your long history of experience as an
Yeah,
educator.
it's long, yes.
Sure.
Yes. Very long.
Is there anything that you personally feel is at risk, or is at risk of being lost in terms of just the quality of experience of young people in our community with their every move being watched?
If you had asked me that 10 years ago, I probably would give you a different answer, but or even 5 years ago. But I think all of our perspectives on this have changed since Sandy Hook, and what's happened in the world has changed. I never thought I would become an expert on school security. You know, it was never part of my training in my long history of being an educator. You know, no one ever talked about this. So really the first 32 years of my career are almost irrelevant to this. But what's happened in the last 5 has been that we've had to recalibrate our priorities. And we are able to do it, I believe, in a way that is not in people's faces. It's not like you walk down the hall and there's video cameras going and everybody is worried about it. For the most part, in schools you won't even know they're there. But I think that it's something that's critically important to maintaining the public trust and a feeling of safety in the building, because if students and their parents don't feel that we're doing everything we can to keep kids safe, then that in and of itself is a huge deterrent to people getting the most out of their education. If they don't feel safe, it really doesn't matter what we do instructionally. And while nothing's 100% guaranteed, the police have told us that these steps that we take will really make a big difference in that safety and security for students, which in and of itself is actually comforting. So I have no problem with it, and I think it's something that actually is probably more important to do now than ever, and will probably lead to a better educational environment than if we didn't do it.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Anyone else? Representative Vergara.
How many of the schools actually have air conditioning? In terms of, you're talking about window coatings, and I'm
Right.
thinking the futility of having a window coating on schools that have to prop open their windows half the year.
Well, first of all, we're not really talking about window coating here. We are talking about reinforcing the glass on a number of the entryways, which I'll be deliberately vague about. But we have quite a few of our schools that don't have air conditioning, and as a result, we're trying to get air conditioning in the schools as we do renovations. But I would say we're probably at about 50% right now, air conditioned, 50% not. Both our high schools are partial. You know, we have partial air conditioning in both high schools. I would love to have 100% air conditioning in all of our schools. That's not really fiscally possible right now, so we're inching our way forward. But I don't want people to get the impression that every single window in the district is going to be coated with some sort of surface that will prevent entry. I just can't get into exactly how many and where.
Thank you.
Representative Bateson.
Thank you. Quick question. When I participated in the Capital Planning Summit in September, I remember one of the schedules had Fairfield Woods Middle School elevator for $150,000. Did that get done in a separate project, or is it in your budget, or is it gone?
No, Tom can answer that question.
We took that off the schedule because a new contractor won the award for the preventive maintenance and has been doing some work on it and said we should be able to get more years out of it.
What are you thinking?
They thought anywhere between 3 to 5 more years.
So in other words, if I look at next year's Capital Planning Summit, I'll probably see that in the 2021, 22.
Yeah, I have to move that in, as well as a couple other things I'm looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Good memory.
Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Dean. Thank you. Sorry, it's hard for me to see down there.
So I'm reading the visitor management.
Can you just use your mic, please?
Sorry, my apologies. So I'm reading the visitor management, and I'm a teacher too, and I'm in a different school district, and I've experienced lockdowns now, and I've learned that there's actually several different types of lockdowns, interior, exterior, and they're all frightening, honestly. Even though it's a rehearsed one, and we know about it, it's still frightening. But my question is, it has Raptor instantly screens out registered sex offenders from campuses with children while managing custody issues, visitors, students, faculty, volunteers. I'm not sure how much you can reveal, but I'm curious how it does that, how it screens out the registered sex offenders, how it deals with parents who are going through a custody battle and they're coming to the school to take their children. And maybe I'm getting wrapped around the axle a little bit too much right now. I'm just curious because it is an expensive system, and I want the schools to be secure, and I don't want anyone coming in taking our children away who shouldn't be.
Right. So that's actually in there, although that project is not, the expansion of that is not being funded with this appropriation. That was in the previous appropriation. But we right now have that system only at the high schools. And we have it at the high schools was on a trial basis to see how well it would work. Also, the high schools have a trained security person who mans the front desk and runs the system all day long. And is not the kind of thing that we were ready to roll out to the other schools because we weren't going to be able to put somebody at all the other schools to run the system. We weren't sure that it would be a fair burden to put on the secretarial staff. However, what it does is it scans the person's license, and then it, without getting into too much detail because it changes all the time, the license, the identification, then is matched against certain databases, and then based on what it finds, it either gives you an alert to get additional information or it just passes the person through. But it doesn't automatically result in something. It may be that that individual then calls for some assistance and maybe some further investigation has to happen. It doesn't mean that, the alarm goes off and then, some net comes down and grabs the person and hoists them away, like a bad cartoon. So we have a system in place where if something is detected that police officer would come, and both our high schools have an SRO, so we'd be able to handle it. We'd be able to talk to the person in private. Nobody would be publicly embarrassed because it all could be a big misunderstanding. Fortunately, it's rarely if ever happened, but the fact that people know that they will have to subject themselves to some sort of background check acts as a deterrent to people coming who might want to do that, knowing that they're going to be checked. So as a result, it's worked out very well, but it's something that just electronically checks database subscription service, so it's constantly updated.
And this would be available in all the schools?
Well, right now, we're only doing it at the high schools.
Right, no, I know, I'm familiar with
and
that.
We're still seeing how it's working and whether it's feasible to do it at the other schools. We've not made a decision on that yet. It was just in there as an example of a security measure we had taken, but it's actually not part of this appropriation.
Anybody else have any questions for the Board of Education? Seeing none, thank you all very much.
All right, well, thank you all for your assistance.
Next up, we're still on item number 11, which is non-recurring capital, but we have Dan, and I'm going to destroy your last name, so I'll let you say it into the microphone. Here from the IT department. Now we're on the town side, non-recurring projects.
Hi, I'm Dan Ciclin-Paglia. I'm the systems administrator for the town's IT department.
Thank you. You and I have traded a lot of emails.
Yes, it's nice to actually put a face to the email.
Yes. Welcome. So
Thank
tell us
you.
about the project you're here for.
The bonding resolution that is up before you and in the packet is equipment replacement for the town. We are looking to actually replace the large-scale disk arrays. We have 3 separate data centers throughout town, and we are starting a process to roll out and replace each one of them, one each year for a 3-year period. The first one that we're looking to replace is our backup center because we're looking to actually start that process in a safe manner. We don't want to try and replace our frontline equipment first. We want to make sure we have a quality backup system and things in case there's an issue we can actually roll back. Also, you don't actually usually replace your 24/7 equipment without a good rollback plan. In this manner, what we're looking to do is start with our disaster recovery site, and then in preceding years roll out once we actually learn all of the ins and outs of how this new system works, roll it out to our frontline equipment.
Anybody have any questions on this IT item? Yeah. Representative McCarthy?
Yeah, I'm
Excuse me.
looking for it here, but I thought I saw it was solid-state disk. Is that what you're...
It's actually going to be a hybrid system. There'll be some solid state and some actually spinning disk in it.
Okay.
Essentially, it's a very large-scale disk array, in the neighborhood of about 20 terabytes minimum. The larger ones are going to be around 40 terabytes.
Okay.
Pretty much the reason that we have these large-scale disk arrays, we have what's called a virtual server system, in which the servers aren't actually tied to a physical box. There's multiple servers that run on each individual box. And in order to do that, you actually have to have a large-scale space where they can actually be stored.
In near proximity to the server, I assume?
Yes, each data center actually has one.
Okay. Are you concerned about, I mean, all disks fails, but there tends to be the spec at the top of the stairs with solid state is there's a finite number of times you can write to the rewrite.
Correct. That's one of the reasons that the system would be more of a hybrid system is that the solid state would actually act for read and write cache, which actually gives you faster performance.
I understand.
And then once it actually puts that in, it'll actually drop it to a spinning disk, which actually will store the image for much longer.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you.
Hank, you're in charge. Sorry.
By the way.
All right, anybody else have any questions?
Dan, where is this going to live, this particular one?
The one that we're looking to replace is the one that is currently in Fairfield Woods Library.
I see.
So we're referring to the $125,000 cluster replacement, right? That's what we're
Correct.
discussing?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Lynch.
Is there a reason why we're manning our own data centers and not moving this to a scalable cloud system? Azure Cloud or AWS as the...
There is, actually, we do certain cloud systems. It's currently the cost of actually moving all of our systems into the cloud is very prohibitive at this point. Plus, there are also certain applications that their vendors will not support cloud application. In particular, our public safety. Both Firehouse and the next-gen system, they do not support cloud implementations at all.
Representative Bateson.
I just want to follow up on what you just said. When you said it's cost prohibitive, does that mean on an annual basis or on if we went to, sorry, Tim, this sounds like might be your area of expertise. Is this an upfront cost that when we migrate to the cloud, the first year is extremely expensive, but then it goes down, or is it just prohibitively expensive all the time?
No, it would become an annual expense, and the annual expense would be much more than the cost of the unit over a either a 5 or 6 year period.
Okay, thank you.
The reason that actually will be that is just the amount of space that we would actually need. Most places that use a cloud implementation don't use quite as large storage.
Well, there are lots, but so our max is 20 terabytes?
No, that's actually the smaller arrays.
Okay. Are we at petabyte yet? What's our upper limit of data?
Currently, we are the installation currently at Fairfield Woods has 42 terabytes, and that'll actually be moving to a unit slightly larger than that.
So it's 42 terabytes?
Yep.
Okay.
And that's usable space. It's actually not the raw disk storage.
Representative Bateson.
Okay, that conversation I got lost on, I'll tell you. But what I think I'm seeing in the industry is that this kind of storage is getting cheaper. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you go cloud-based, I mean, I imagine now it's expensive. Maybe in a couple years, it would get cheaper.
There is a possibility. And again, like I'm saying, when we have looked at it and we have actually moved certain applications to the cloud where it's economically viable. There are certain instances where we cannot actually move to the cloud. Again, the number one instance would actually be our public safety environment. It just, their vendors will not allow it. They don't actually support it because they actually have to have a physical connection basically between the vehicles on the road and the actual system. And they do not actually at this time support any type of cloud installation.
I'm good for now.
Anyone else? I have a question, but it's actually related to the bonding, so I'll follow up with Mr. Mayor. I thought it was our past practice not to bond technology, but I need to follow up on the...
There was actually a discussion on that. I believe the bonding resolution actually says it's a minimum of 7 years. This application would be a guaranteed like 6-year installation.
Okay.
So it may become something that you want to discuss with Bob. This was actually in place and in the waterfall for the last 3 years, and I'm not sure where maybe the miscommunication between what the bonding was and what we were looking to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anybody else? Excellent. Thank you very much, Dan. Did you have a follow-up, Jim?
So the cluster, as we're talking about the bonding reaching over that 7 years, as technology evolves, you can swap out the drives through the system, I assume.
Correct. The newer system that we're looking at, one of the reasons that we are actually looking to go to a new system is the end of support for the system that we're currently using is Q3 2017, which gives us about a year and a half before they basically, the vendor does not support anything on the unit now. The system that we're looking to go to is actually a much more modular system that we can add many more shelves and allow for much more computing power later on in the future. Yes.
And that might be the bonding issue, is that now these drives may have a lifespan of 6 years, but the system that the drives are going in will live longer than those 6 years.
Gotcha.
Yes, basically what we're looking to do is we get 3 years free maintenance on this. Then the vendor actually would provide us new controllers, which basically gives us a new chassis. So it's another 3 years on a 3-year contract. We can actually pay for additional contracts after that. This actually could extend longer than a 6-year period.
All right. Thank you. That's good to know. It's beyond my pay grade. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we're on to item number 12. We're still on non-recurring for the town side. We have Chief McCarthy from the fire department. Right? Yes, it is.
Good evening.
Welcome, Chief.
Dennis McCarthy. I'm the fire chief, and it's my pleasure to make my first appearance before the RTM committees. Thank you.
It's our pleasure to have you. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Welcome to Fairfield. Well, I know you're a resident, but welcome to work in it.
Just in a different capacity.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the capital request that you have before you is $900,000 to replace Engine 5. It was in and has appeared in the waterfall and in the vehicle replacement program that supports our replacement plan. You'll notice that in the waterfall, it appeared at $620,000, and we have requested that that be increased by $280,000. The reason we are making the request at $900,000 is that in December, our ladder 1 that is currently being replaced will no longer be able to serve in a reserve capacity. It has been deemed unsafe to operate, so we've taken it out of service and tagged it out so none of the hydraulics can be operated, so the ladder can't operate. In addition to that, engine 5 that serves at Greenfield Hill, which is 12 years old, has had significant deterioration of the frame rails due to corrosion, and that has been taken out of service. So we need to make a decision on how to provide ladder service to our main ladder that's at Jennings Road. And the most economical approach would be to purchase a vehicle that can serve as both a pumper, and that's what its primary function will be, but we'll have a shorter ladder, a lighter duty ladder, but one that can provide access to upper floors, to roofs, to make rescues, and provide a degree of safety for firefighters that operate above the first floor. Hence, we've made an appropriation request for $900,000 that is higher than what was originally in the waterfall.
Great. Representative Garskoff.
Thank you, and Chief, welcome. And I know this, I'm referring to something that happened before you were Chief, but I think we bought a ladder. Was that last year? It was last year. And did we decide not to put the full ladder on it because we didn't need a full ladder? Do you have that history? Can you help me with
Yes,
that
I do.
history? Thank you.
So the decision was made in last year to replace ladder 1. Ladder 1 is currently 20 years old. It's the one that I referred to that's been taken out of service. Decision was made to replace it with a vehicle that doesn't have a hydraulically actuated aerial device. Given the staffing of the Fairfield Fire Department, we have 3 firefighters on every piece of equipment. When you think of what it takes to raise a ground ladder under emergency conditions in all kind of weather, that a hydraulically operated aerial device is the appropriate tool for commercial buildings that line primarily the Post Road and Black Rock Turnpike and other commercial districts, but also in residential areas. You look at what's being built at the beach. They're 4-story buildings on stilts. And my biggest concern, and the reason that brought me to make this request, is you look at the potential for wind-driven fires down there, and we've seen them in other communities during Sandy in particular, and also during Irene, the potential to lose a block of homes because we don't have the ability to provide aerial master streams. In addition, the hazards that firefighters are being exposed to, and the documentation is pretty significant, that given construction methods today, buildings are burning, and the contents of homes, buildings are burning quicker and faster and are more dangerous for firefighters. They're safe and they're designed to sustain the building in time for the occupants to get out. But not to provide any degree of safety for firefighters. And the only way to control a fire or to make a rescue is to make an aggressive interior attack. I feel it's the department's obligation to put every resource available to give an escape route for firefighters when they're operating above the fire or on upper floors. The only way to do that effectively and efficiently is with a hydraulically operated ladder. And that's why I think that, and believe, the town of Fairfield needs 2 hydraulically operated ladders. Right now, if ladder 2 is out of service for any reason, goes to a call, goes to Bridgeport, is down for repairs, is down for regular service, we don't have a ladder truck.
Thank you. So is essentially this now a ladder truck that we're buying, or is it?
The technical definition is a quint. It carries water, it carries ladders, it carries hose, it has a pump, and it has a ladder. The ladder is
with the pneumatic aerial that you were
it's
describing.
hydraulically operated aerial device, yes. It's not a 100-foot stick. It's a 75-foot stick. It's on a single rear axle as opposed to a double rear axle, which is a much bigger, heavier piece of equipment. We're going to operate it as a fire pumper, but it does give us the capacity to put an aerial device up to a roof or upper story.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Bateson.
Hi, thank you. You said something, I don't understand the terminology, aerial master stream?
Yes, so if we are going to prevent a fire from leaping from one building to another, most efficient way is to have large caliber master streams play water 250, 300 gallons per minute to shield the unburnt buildings from the ones that are burning.
That would come from the top of a ladder?
From the top of a ladder, yep.
Okay,
We
now,
can do it from a ground device, but most effective from an aerial device.
and do we have that capability now?
We do with ladder 2.
Okay, now, I'm a little confused as to what equipment we have. Ladder 1, you're saying, we don't have ladder 1 anymore?
So ladder 1 is out of service.
Is that the one that was on Reef Road?
Yes.
Where's ladder 2, Jennings?
Jennings, yep. So ladder 1 has been taken out of service. It's essentially, the ladder has been decommissioned. We operate it as a truck to carry equipment. It is being replaced with a truck that carries ground ladders, but will not have a hydraulically operated aerial device.
Ladder
And-
2, I'm sorry, ladder 2 is still stationed at Jennings?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to follow up on you, Representative Garsko. What did we, I could have sworn we bought a ladder.
We
Spread it
bought
over 2 years.
We bought a ladder truck that does not have a hydraulically operated. When you think of a ladder truck, when you think of a hook and ladder, you think of a truck that has a hydraulically operated device on the top of it. That's not what the town bought. The town bought a truck that carries ground ladders.
When did we buy that?
It will be delivered in April.
Oh, okay, I'm going back a couple more years. Okay.
No,
Ladder
that's
1
that's the vehicle that has, the funding cycle was probably it began 18 months ago or 2 years ago.
Okay, so where is ladder 1 now?
It is at the shop, out of service.
Okay, is all this request, I'm sorry, I've been on the board for several years. We've been following a fire department capital replacement plan. I think it was Scott was here. He's presented this for several years. Is this in line with the plan? Is this the pumper that I'm seeing that
This
should have
is-
been last year,
This is the
next year?
pumper that has been part of the waterfall capital projection for the department. The only difference is that we are upgrading from a strict pumper to one that has this hydraulically operated aerial device. It will look like a ladder truck.
And it will have the
And it will
capability to pump
operate
water.
like a ladder truck. We're going to operate it every day as an engine, but we will have the capability of putting that aerial device up for the circumstances that I described earlier.
Okay, when this new piece of equipment comes in service, where will it be stationed?
The one that I'm requesting?
Yes.
At Reef Road.
At Reef Road. And I'm sorry, you were mentioning something up on...
We rotate vehicles around to get the greatest life out of them. The vehicles that operate at Reef and Jennings see the greatest number of hours, greatest number of miles, and it makes sense to put them in a less demanding environment to get a greater life out of the vehicle. So we will take engine 1, put it at Station 5, which has fewer runs per day, take the new vehicle and put it at Station 1.
And you were saying what's Station 5, Greenfield Hill?
Yes.
And you were...
The vehicle that's being replaced is the engine in Greenfield Hill. But we will move vehicles around to get the greatest life out of them.
Okay, now with this equipment, this piece of equipment, if we lost ladder 1 at Reef Road, I imagine the capability of this new piece of equipment is similar to ladder 1 because it has the hydraulic ladder which you want.
Correct.
For the taller structures that I envision in that part of town.
Correct.
Okay, do you have that document in a PDF format by any chance?
Yep.
Can you forward that to the moderator?
You're talking about the vehicle replacement plan?
Yeah, and that has not been updated, I
It's
imagine?
not. We're in the process of updating it now, but it has not been updated. This was developed in 2014.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Gerber and then Representative Lee. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just want, welcome, Chief.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify something. So the truck that we approved last year is a truck that will carry ladders, and that's going to be delivered soon.
April.
And do you still need that truck?
So we will operate it as a rescue truck. It'll carry equipment. We'll take equipment off of the ladder and put it on this vehicle and operate it as a rescue truck. So what we will have at Reef Road is the truck that's due to be delivered in April. It will have ground ladders on it. It will have rescue equipment on it. The vehicle that we're requesting will also be at Reef Road. It will have ground ladder. It will have a pump and a aerial device on it.
Well, I had Representative, is that a follow-up? Or Representative Lee? Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you. Following up on Representative Gerber's line of questioning, that piece of equipment seems excessive to be running as a rescue truck. I'm not a fireman. Rescue, isn't that 911? I think I'm having a heart attack. Is that rescue, the
No,
somewhat smaller
rescue
truck?
Is, the best way to describe it is there's a train derailment and we need to extricate people from the rail cars. There's a truck or a car accident on I-95. We need to cut the car away from the injured parties to provide them, to get them out and for medical care. A rescue is if there is a construction accident or a below-grade rescue or a trench cave-in, it carries the equipment that would be appropriate to deal with those types of emergencies.
Okay, so you don't envision this new piece of equipment that we're getting in April as being overkill for this type of service that it's being redesignated to. It sounds like we're taking this piece of equipment and redesignating it to something that it might not be appropriate for or is overkill.
It's it is a vehicle that is probably bigger than I would design for the purpose. It has a dual rear axle. Makes it a big piece of equipment to drive on town roads for a rescue service.
I think this question was asked at the Board of Finance meeting, but is there a market to sell that and purchase something that might be more useful now that you've had a chance to examine what's in the packet and what the vehicles we need in town?
I have asked that question.
Okay.
And what I told the Board of Finance is there is no one else, no other fire department that is buying this type of piece of equipment.
Thank you. Well, Representative Lee's been waiting. Okay. Representative McCullough.
Thank you and welcome, Chief. Will the truck that is being delivered in April fit into all 5 of the firehouses, and will the truck that you want fit in all 5 firehouses?
So Station 4 is a special case in Southport. Nothing fits in Station 4 without modification. We will take a piece of equipment and cut the bumpers down in order to get them to fit in the Southport station because the length of the bays is much shorter than any of the other stations. We do have a height restriction at Reef Road, and so the truck that's coming in April will fit in the 2 stations that it will operate out of. It will fit in Jennings Road and Reef Road. There is no reason to send it to Southport, Greenfield Hill, or Jackman Avenue. The truck that is coming will be able to fit in all of the stations. The truck that I'm requesting will be able to fit in all the stations except for Southport. And we will design it. There are limited manufacturers that have the ability to put an aerial device on a pumper and still be within our height constraints. So we will make sure that one does it as a standard model, one will do it as another manufacturer will do it as a retrofit.
Thank you. As a follow-up, you mentioned that you're reviewing the plan. When do you anticipate that you will have the opportunity to give us a new plan?
So this plan is under revision right now. I would expect that within 2 months it will be done. One of the addendums to this that I think is very important because of the problems we're having with corrosion. This is something that I spoke about at the Board of Finance. The road treatments that make roads very safe for all of us are having a significant impact on fire apparatus. And the engine that is currently at Station 5, or that just came out of service at Station 5, is coming out of service because of corrosion on the frame rails. These are the 2 main rails that carry the entire weight of the vehicle. And it will cost us somewhere around $85,000 to $100,000 to repair that piece of equipment, to get another 12 years of life out of it. I mean, it's a good investment. But I want to make sure that when we revise the replacement plan, that we take into account some of this new experience that fire departments are having with fire apparatus and include a corrosion prevention plan as part of that, because we will not get the life that we are projecting in this plan unless we change how we maintain the undercarriages of our pieces of equipment and address the corrosion problem.
Are manufacturers
There is a lifetime warranty on frame rails, and that lifetime warranty does not include corrosion. So we are looking at a couple of different options, whether to use galvanized frame rails, whether to use, proprietary e-coating that one manufacturer is promoting. But what it's going to take is daily maintenance and cleaning, whether we build a undercarriage truck wash or purchase you can wash your car down. If you're driving the salt in bad weather, you can wash your car down. You'll still have a coat of white on the side of the car if you just spray it off. So just spraying the undercarriage will not solve the problem. So it's a little more difficult to come up with a solution that is appropriate for the threat that this poses to us. So it's taken some time, and that's why I expect we can do the replacement plan pretty quickly because we know what's in the queue. But the corrosion prevention plan, I think, is going to take a little more time. And there are a number of experts out there, and they all have a different solution depending on what they're selling to solve our problem.
Stunning. Representative Lee.
Welcome to Fairfield, Chief.
you.
Sounds
Good
like
to
we're
be
in good
here.
hands. Since I know zero about fire trucks, I just had 2 questions. So we're down to 1 ladder truck.
Correct.
What is the expected life of that ladder truck?
It is in the, so it was purchased in 2007, and it is scheduled for replacement in 2021. It will go into reserve status as long as we maintain it well between now and then. we will get another 5 to 10 years of reserve status when it goes in. So we'll get another 5 to 10 years. So 2021, replace it. It goes into reserve status when we buy a new ladder truck.
And I believe when I was looking at the town waterfall, you have scheduled, there is one scheduled, what is it, 1 year or 2 years?
2 years from now.
2 years.
A pumper.
We don't have another ladder truck on the,
No, we don't. We have, so we just bought a ladder truck, or a truck.
we have
and-
that's not the level of ladder truck that I was really referring to.
Right, no, there is not another one until 2021.
Okay. Is this, this truck sounds cool. I mean, I like the idea of multitasking with trucks. Is it high enough to deal with some of the newer structures? I mean, if they ever get around to building anything at the train station, for example, you know, these hotels and so forth. I mean, I'm trying to envision what 75 feet really means. And by the way, I live in the middle of all of
Three
those.
stories.
4
depending on-
stories.
Yeah, 3 stories, depending on where you can, how close you can get it to the building. We will have a full-size 100-foot ladder truck. And we will have a 75-foot Quint, is this vehicle that I'm requesting funding for.
Okay.
The two of them working in tandem, because if we have a fire, both of them are going to be at the fire. We will use them appropriately and train to deploy them. So we put the 100-foot area where we need 100 feet, and we use the 75-foot for where we need where it can serve effectively.
Okay. I just got a little concerned when we had 2 and now we have 1, because when you have 1, you have no room for error.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Zezima.
Good evening and welcome.
Hi, thank you.
3 questions, if I may. Number 1, do we have a paid engineer in our department, or is all maintenance outsourced?
No, we have a master mechanic and an assistant mechanic. They work out of the Jennings Road Firehouse, and they maintain all of our equipment. They do subcontract a considerable amount of work. Part of the problem that we have at that location is it's a firehouse that also has, you know, maintenance built into it. You know, long term, we'd be looking for an appropriate maintenance garage that we can maintain the fleet. But they do very effective work. They take, and let me just say about the mechanics, they take their responsibility for firefighter safety very, very seriously. And I commend them for, you know, the attention they put to making sure that when emergency 40,000-pound vehicle goes down the road, that it's safe for the operators and everybody else on the road.
Great. Number 2, on the pumpers, are they designed only for fresh water? Do you ever, especially in the beach area, would you ever be pumping salt water? Does it affect the warranty or the
Yeah, and it'll
mechanics?
make the mechanic pull his hair out. Yeah, the salt water is corrosive, and yes, you can pump, and departments do pump from the sound, and it requires a very diligent cleaning and flushing process afterwards. We prefer not to do it, but yes, absolutely.
The last one, Madam Moderator, do we have a tour organized yet for the fire department?
I know Public Works was looking into that.
We'll look at some dates and make those
For
arrangements.
Public Health and Safety, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Garskoff.
Chief, as you looked at this need, did you weigh buying another ladder instead?
Yes, and we have to replace an engine. So engine 5 has to be replaced at least $620,000. We have to, if we replaced it a ladder, it would be $1.2 million to $1.3 million. We have a $100,000 repair of engine 5, and it would mean that we would have to take the vehicle that we're expecting delivery for, because we only have so many slots and personnel to operate this. The only place that ladder could go would be to take the place of the ladder we have yet to receive. So what do I do with a $900,000 piece of equipment that I'm replacing with a $1.2 million piece of equipment and not using?
Got it. Thank you.
Anyone want to buy a fire truck? Anyone else? Thank you very much, Chief.
And I look forward to coming back with much less controversial issues.
No, it's hardly controversial. I know we all want everyone to be safe. Next up, Mr. Lombardo, still on non-reoccurring capital. Now we're on item number 13. Welcome, Jerry, and the golf bunkers.
Good evening. Jerry Lombardo, Director of Parks and Recreation. What you have before you is a request for the $100,000. This is the 7th year of our 10-year Master Improvement Program up at the H. Smith Richardson Golf Course. As you know, we've been doing bunkers, drainage, tee leveling, anything to do with improvement of play on the golf course. The investments we have been making over the past 6 years has not gone unnoticed. Many of you may have seen that we were awarded the best golf course in the state of Connecticut by the Connecticut Golf Association this year. We're the first municipal golf course ever to receive that award.
Congratulations.
Municipal.
The best municipal, the best.
No, it's through the public. In other words, it's private golf courses that always received them before. The only public, I'll call it public, is Lake of Isles up at the Indians. They got it a couple of years ago, but that's not a municipally owned course. So we were very pleased, and I think that has a lot to do with I know it has a lot to do with the backing of this board and the townspeople for supporting our facilities and reinvesting in them to keep them going. So I'll answer any questions, but basically it's the same thing that we've been doing for the past 6 years.
Anyone have a question? Representative Lay.
Jerry, nice to see you. Correct me if I'm wrong. This golf course makes money, correct?
Yes.
So we're actually taking some of our profits and reinvesting.
Basically, that's what you're doing over there.
Like that. Thank you.
Yes.
Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Jerry. Thanks for coming through and dedicating yourself to this 10-year project. Now that we're in year 7 out of 10, we got to be coming close to the end, and based upon all the bunkers, tee boxes, and everything, all those, what I would envision as separate assets or separate projects that you've been looking at. In the 3 years that are remaining, is $300,000 going to cover it? And the 3 years, are we still online for that timeline and the amount of money left?
We are in timeline to finish projects. The only caveat to that would be the cost. Obviously we did these fees, these numbers 7 years ago. We'll be looking at new numbers for the restrooms out on the course and the cleaning of the machines. Right now we wash off the machines out and just off the tee on by the maintenance shed, but there's an actual environmentally safe wash-off area that we'd be investing in, and we don't have an up-to-date price on that moving forward.
Is that expensive?
I believe it was estimated to be about $100,000 at the time.
Okay.
It's in the we'd have a balance of about $300,000, as you said. It was in that number to begin with, but we don't have a firm number on it at this point because it's still 3 years down the road.
You envision excluding that machine wash-off, that you're going to complete the your wish list that you set out 7 years ago to accomplish?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Representative McCarthy.
Jerry, how you doing on run rate with out-of-town rounds and cart rentals? I mean, the business plan was predicated on maintaining the max number of rounds.
The rounds have gone up, and they went up significantly this year. I mean, it's, as you know, it's all weather dependent. Just to give you a quick synopsis, we run on golf cart revenue a little over $300,000 a year. In 14, we did drop a little bit because it was a wet. This year, with the drainage improvements also being dry, but we did have some wet days, but nothing that we had to close the course. We went up about 14% over the 3-year period. We're going to be bringing in close to over $320,000.
Okay, so that says to me you're ahead of plan, the original 10-year plan in terms of run rate.
I'm going to say we're on target because in other areas we had lean years.
Okay.
Okay, but overall I would say we're on target.
All right, great. Thanks.
Representative Dean.
During this plan, this long-term plan, over the course of 10 years, the excavating and the improvements are deemed permanent, I'm assuming? Meaning that they will, the Mother Nature won't come back and claim its property and go back to how it was before? And if so, have you put preventative measures in place so that doesn't happen?
Well, a lot of the work that we've done you can't see. It's all underground. It's drainage pipe, things like that. Obviously, there's ways of cleaning it and flushing them. But they have we're assuming they're a good 20 years. Now, with bunker work, the drainage work should last that long. But it's not to say we won't go back in and do regular maintenance. We do regular maintenance on them. But there'll be a cost factor in our operating budget down the road to reshape and things of that nature, but not to the extent that we had to do this time.
So this work really will cut down on that type of maintenance?
I see it lasting a good 20 years.
Good, thank you.
Anyone else? Representative Vergara.
Is it possible to get a copy of the financial statements to see the revenue and the maintenance costs?
Sure. We can. I can send the moderator a we do it monthly, so I can send you our last month revenue, and it shows what it does. It has. We compare it month to month, year to year, and fiscal year to year.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Non-reoccurring capital items 12 and 13. Joe Michelangelo. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You know, Kathleen does the schedule, so it's not my fault you're all the way back here again.
That's okay. There are 3 projects that were submitted by Public Works that have made it to the RTM level. I'm not sure what order, but I think Gould Manor is the first one. Gould Manor Park, there is a several-acre pond in the park area, and it's a man-made pond, so it's created by about a 6-foot dam. So what happens to our pond, and generally all ponds, when the stream flows down and it gets slowed down by the dam, velocity settles down everything, all the particles settle in the pond there. Hasn't been dredged for several decades. So what happens to to ponds when these happen is that you start losing depth little by little by little. Depth is important for the health of a pond. For fish species, once you start getting shallow depth, you have less water, obviously, more competition for oxygen. It heats up very fast once it's only several feet deep. The sediments that do settle out are full of nutrients, full of nitrogen, full of phosphates. Those compete for the oxygen, and once they're there, you get the cycle going. Unhealthy for the pond health and quality. also from an aesthetic point of view and environmental point of view. What the pond also does, it does provide stormwater storage. You know, in areas there, it's 2, 3, 4 feet. We'd like to excavate to approximately 6 to 8 feet. It provides storage there. If there isn't storage there, what happens when it goes over the dam too fast? There has been occasions, and not since we rebuilt the field, but there are 2 baseball fields downstream from them which do get flooded out, crosses Crestwood, crosses into the backyards of the homes in Quaker, where there's a water course there. So not only does it cause damage to our fields, it also creates sand in a water course which we have to go fetch. So it's a worthwhile project. Been working with Brian Carey from Conservation on this, and we'd like to go forward with this project.
Representative Bateson.
Joe, is this Gould Manor, the pond, is it part of any watershed?
Yeah, all ponds are part of a watershed, and one of this it's not a very large watershed, so it probably goes up to up High Street, probably about a mile there. So it's a small area which drains to it, mostly residential areas, quarter-acre lots. It is developed, but there isn't any industry up above that would cause us any major concerns on the stuff we're taking out of there.
Okay, so that was getting to my next question. When you're talking about stormwater runoff with the road there and the highway, have we done any preliminary testing about what's in the sediment?
No, we have not. But once again, if it was a Black Rock or if it was Kings Highway, we'd approach it a little differently. But because of the nature of the upstream area, we don't think we'll have any of those concerns.
Where do we take the material?
Once again, that depends on the type of soil you get there, and ideally, if we were doing, it probably to another site or possibly to a disposal facility. One of the things they recommend, if you have a site that is appropriate and this site isn't, the best place to do it is to cast it on site there and grade it into the terrain there. Because we have a very tight site there, that wouldn't be possible. So either another location in town or out of town.
How many cubic yards are you envisioning removing?
Offhand, I don't have that figure in front of me.
Okay.
It might be in the write-up, but I don't. But offhand, I do not know.
Thank you.
Representative Durrell.
Hi, Joe. Piggybacking on Ed Bateson there, the Army Corps plant thing, if anything ever becomes of it, will that affect the watershed or anything like that if they do a lot of construction there or something like that?
I believe that pitches away from High Street, so I'm not sure if I know that the stream crosses and goes up. I don't know if that site. I don't think much of that site, if any, drains into this pond.
Representative. Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Way.
Joe, in connection with the ball fields, because that place is used so much, will they be closed down at all when this takes place, or?
No, it will not be closed down. And there's a couple ways to dredge. You could literally do like what they did in the Mill River with a hydraulic dredger, and a lot of times that's easier. But once again, because of space constraints, we don't think we're going to do it that way. Another way to do it is once you dewater the pond, you could do it with conventional equipment, with backhoes, bulldozers, loaded into a truck. So most likely that's how we're going to do it, just in the pond itself. So it won't. We'll cordon off an area there, but it won't affect any of the athletic schedules, and we'll plan it around different events and rec activities.
It will take away from the picnic area all around the pond, though, and that activity area.
Correct. So on the east side, that picnic area, and there's 2 playscapes there. So one of the playscapes will be in business. Most likely, the one on the east side will be cordoned off.
Not be usable then.
Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Bateson.
Joe, sorry, is this a regulated project? Do we answer to the state of Connecticut on this?
It may need some state permit. this project has been envisioned for a while, so it has, you know, it got inland wetlands approval probably about 5 years ago, and then fell off the back burner.
But it's not like a harbor dredging where we have to go through all these state and federal agencies, is it?
We may need DEP approval, but I'm not positive. So,
Okay,
but
thank
whatever
you.
permits are necessary, we'll go through them.
Representative Garskoff.
You said it was 6 feet deep? Did I hear that?
Well, currently right now it's anywhere from 2 to 4 feet. The goal is to both for aquatic health and for storage, anywhere from 6 to 8 feet. And you can make it ununiform. So if you make it 6 feet and then you get another little depth of 8 feet and then you bring it to 6 again.
And it's just a natural soil bottom, or
correct. You
just dig until you hit something and then you dig somewhere else and you.
Well, you'd have a map to follow, so it's not a contractor we have do the work has an actual, topographic survey, but it's inverse. It's a bathymetric survey, and they have to follow the contours of the grading plan you give them, similar to the Mill River. So the Mill River was done hydraulic dredging, and I always like to describe it. It's almost like mowing your lawn in the dark, so you don't really know where you're going, but you could hit all the points. But once again, if we dewater it, you could sculpt the bottom, whatever grading terms, conditions we assign to it.
And just to make sure I got it, it's like 2 or 3 feet deep now, and you want to get it to like 6 or 8 feet deep as a.
Correct. It's, it varies in
Right.
spots, and
Overall,
the edges are very shallow.
Thank you.
But correct.
Great. I don't see any further questions on the pond. What else do you have for us
Okay.
this evening?
Another project, and I hope I'm going in order because this is the order that I had them. We have a request for $230,000 for a 6-wheel all-season dump truck with a wing plow. One of the things we've done over the last several years is, through the guidance of the various boards, mainly the Board of Finance, is transition our capital trucks, 100,000 and over, from capital non-recurring to the operating budget. So this is the last year we will hopefully have a request in the capital non-recurring request. We also have several in the operating budget, which you'll see in a couple weeks. But hopefully this will be the last year that we've been weaning away from the capital non-recurring. And the thought being that it's not non-recurring. It's a capital non-recurring account by definition, but every year we were coming recurringly asked for it. So the guidance of the Board of Finance specifically was to get it over to the operating budget. So this is the last, hopefully the last request that'll be through capital non-recurring. This is the nuts and bolts of our fleet. We probably have 24 of these such vehicles, 38,000 pound gross vehicle weight vehicle. Does everything from obviously plowing, construction activities. So it's 365-day a year truck. One thing that we've added to this truck, which we don't have, which we've never used before, is an additional wing plow. You may have seen them on state roads. More and more local public works departments are going to them. So it's basically the plow with an additional plow on the right side. We weren't sure that it was applicable for our town. We visited the town of Monroe, saw their operations. We saw the town of New Canaan, their operations. New Canaan brought their vehicle down here before Christmas. We tried it on the road. We're convinced that it'll work on a lot of our applications, parking lots, wider roads, train stations, things like that. So that's why this is slightly higher than this piece of equipment has been priced in the past.
Representative Bateson.
Joe, what's the incremental cost on a winged plow as opposed to just unwinged plow?
Well, this is an additional, so this adds about $15,000 to the cost of the whole package.
Okay, and I know based upon your operating budget and this non-recurring, last year I saw there was a lot of swapping out of equipment, between this year, next year, the year after. When you come to us at budget time, can you give us an updated spreadsheet of where you are, and are we keeping, and let's make sure that we're keeping on track with the number of vehicles we're supposed to be acquiring per year so we don't fall behind like we did several years ago and had to bond. I just want to make sure that I understand that the prerequisites of you wanting to swap stuff in and out, but let's keep overall picture on the big plan. If you could send it to us, thanks.
And I'm happy to report that the purchases over the last several years are helping to turn over our fleet. So, when we started this about 3 years ago, we were in a position where I think we have approximately 48 vehicles, $100,000 and over. Well, it was the minority. About a quarter was within the useful life, and 3/4 of it was not within the useful life. And we're about halfway to the point where we're going to flip that. So, probably 3/4 in a couple of years, 3/4 of our trucks will be within their useful life, which is sort of the distribution we want.
Follow up on the winged plow. If you guys don't like the system, can you just detach that winged plow and run one plow?
You could detach it and salvage it for...
We're not married to the winged plow scenario. You can run it as a single plow, correct?
Well, you could run it as a single plow, but a lot of the investment in the truck is built into the truck. It's not totally a
What I'm getting at is, let's say it's a really bad winter, and we'd really, all of our trucks that are on the single lane roads or smaller roads, we need, there's a shortfall, and we can take off the winged plow and use that truck on those roads.
Correct. Yeah, and the wing.
I just want to make sure we have that capability in that truck.
Correct. The wing plow tucks right to the side,
So
the
it can get on the smaller roads if need be.
Yeah, it tucks on the side,
Thank you.
flush against the passenger side of the truck body.
Did someone have a follow-up?
I just wanted to ask
This is
one
six
thing.
wheels, correct?
6-wheeler, as opposed to we have 10-wheel trucks
All
too.
right, I
So
was
there's.
worried. We'll do 5.
Representative Way.
I just wondered, I may have imagined this or something, but all of our trucks have been orange. Did I see recently some very large red trucks with the town seal on them?
We still have, I think, 2 or 3 older red trucks that literally go back to the probably the early 1980s, which I think was the previous color of the fleet. But all of our trucks, besides those several trucks, all of our dump trucks are the Omaha orange, they call them.
So the red ones were actually older.
Correct.
Okay, they looked better than the orange ones. That's why I was asking. I thought that they might have been newer trucks. Thank you.
What's your next item, sir?
Next one is a $100,000 request for field renovations at Sherman School. One of the things, because of the way the town has evolved and the shortage of space, our Park Rec Department and our Public Works maintains athletic fields at virtually all of our schools. The only one I could think of that's an exception is Stratfield School. So every single other school has athletic fields that are maintained by my Public Works employees to hold athletic events, recreation events. And Sherman School is no different. Sherman School has a softball field with a skin-in field that's used for girls, co-ed, and men's softball. There's also soccer fields, which are used in a couple different ways, but for the most part, there's smaller 4 soccer fields, smaller ones that Park and Rec likes to program the 5 and under leagues there. Like a lot of our fields, as I mentioned, this wasn't designed as an athletic field. It was designed as a back of a school. So as it gets more play and the level of service and the demand is there for better fields, the field has been suffering. So we'd like to bring the field up to a athletic quality standard, install drainage, install irrigation, new topsoil, seed it, the whole athletic type quality. The only infrastructure is just some besides the drainage and the irrigation is just a backstop. But we feel that'll bring the field up to the standard that it deserves for the kind of play it's getting. We know it's a tight neighborhood, so one of the things that we are not planning to do is increase the play ante. We just want to make the existing play there as good as possible for the people that use the programs there.
Questions on this? As a mother of 3 boys who've been on that field a lot, thank you.
Okay.
And I believe that's all for your capital, right?
Yep.
Okay. Next up, we're on the supplemental warning. These are items that were added that were time sensitive, so, Joe, I'll let you run through those. They're items number 1, 2, and 3 on the supplemental agenda related to, community development block grants and South Benson storm water pump station.
Okay. So community development block grant / disaster relief are grants that were made available as a result of Storm Sandy. So they're made available by the federal HUD, Housing Urban Development, and distributed locally by the State Department of Housing. So this is, one of the unexpected things about Sandy is, we got FEMA money, but in the CDBG money, we're probably around $7 million worth of grant, which was totally unexpected and a surprise. So we're still, we're almost 3.5 years out from Sandy, so the money is dwindling, but there still is a pot of money, and we were fortunate to get 3 awards. Quick description, one of the things we looked at after Sandy, we've been looking at, is obviously putting things back together, but what do we need to do to change the equation? After Storm Sandy, one of the things we had to do, and we planned it the week before, knowing Sandy was coming, and my guys have been here many years, so they're the ones who had the foresight, that once the water enters the bowl that is the Fairfield Beach area, it's not going to leave itself. We had to rent massive Godwin pumps. Luckily, they came a couple days before the storm, and we used those, for those of you that are familiar with the beach area, we used those at certain areas of the beach area to literally dewater the area. It wasn't going to leave by itself. Well, what this would do is it would create a permanent pump station somewhere in the beach area, and we identified it as in the town-owned property by Jennings parking lot. But because it would be a sump, just like we have in our basement, but 20 feet below the ground, you can almost locate it anywhere in the beach area. So when we do have a flood, instead of having a rented pump, this would be a permanent facility that would go on automatically. A couple of the other benefits, one of the things that we get during almost every storm, if we have 2 inches of rain tonight and it's a high tide, our drainage system doesn't work. The gates are closed because Long Island Sound is higher than the neighborhoods there. So guaranteed that spots like under the railroad crossing, Fairfield Theater, Sanford Street, Rhoda Avenue will have water in it. It's not going to go anywhere. So one of the things this has an opportunity to do, because we're fixed to high tide, one of the things this will give us an opportunity to do is rework our drainage system to, instead of discharging elevation 5, to discharge to elevation -20. So that's conceptually what we're thinking. This is just a study. No capital equipment no capital money is being appropriated, but it starts to get the process going of what the long-term solution is for the beach area.
Anybody else on this?
I'm sorry, this was just the theoretical pump station at that playground, right?
Well, yeah. Well, it's a study, and once again, there's engineering involved.
You just mentioned Sanford Street. That I thought that was referring to a separate project downtown. Or were you talking about all 3 projects?
Well, one of if we have a hole at -20 in the Sandcastle playground area, one of the things it'll do is allow us to redo our drainage, our drainage pipes in the beach area. So I mentioned Sanford Street. The water from Sanford Street has to travel a mile at, this much pitch. If we can make that, instead of going to Long Island Sound, if we can make that go to a much lower location, we can improve our whole drainage system to evacuate the water. So the benefit wouldn't be, it's almost like if you have a flooded basement and you put a sump pump there. It just doesn't help that spot over there. The water from all 4 corners of your basement get pushed to that low spot there, and then you could evacuate it much easier.
And this is the money to study how to do that?
Correct.
Gotcha. Any questions on this? Okay, thank you.
Okay. And this dovetails into that downtown resiliency study. One of the things that civil engineers, when we try to predict drainage runoff, one of the things we use, so if I was analyzing, we'll use the Gould Manor Pond neighborhood. If I try to model the area up there, one of the things I do is I'll count the number of asphalt, I'll count the number of rooftops, I'll count the number of lawns, the number of meadows, the number of swamps, and you assign coefficients to that, and that's how you model the watershed and predict how much water you're going to get. Well, if you look at the downtown area, all of those modeling things are rooftops and sidewalks and pavement and Tomlinson School parking lot and railroad station parking lot. So that's, conceptually we know that one of the problems with downtown is that everything that hits the ground, nothing gets absorbed into the water. It's all coming at us. And not only does it come at us, it comes at us right away because nothing goes there. So once again, conceptually, intuitively know that to change the equation, we have to create, or we'd like to create, some infiltration. Instead of getting it, 100% of the water in 10 seconds, we want to get, a lower, 60% of the water, 70% of the water in, 10 minutes. So that's just conceptually, in our minds what we think we want to do. But once again, to formalize that, if we put, impervious pavement, they have permeable asphalt. If we did the whole train station with that, what would that do for us? If we put rain gardens at every catch basin along the post road, if we created, similar type things, is it enough to make a dent in the problem? So once again, that's what we've proposed. If you see the write-up, it explains that in a little greater detail. So that's what we'd use that grant for, to once again, to see if we could start making a dent in some of the problems we're having down there.
Representative Bateson.
Thank you, Joe. In the diagram that you have highlighted behind the post road area, currently, where do all the majority of those storm drains, what watershed do they hit now?
Everything in, everything in the beach area, including downtown, either goes to, well, it ends, half of it ends up in Pine Creek, and the main way it goes to Pine Creek is there's, outlet behind,
The lumber?
correct, Fairfield Lumber there. Right. There's another one that goes, down Ruane further towards Mona Terrace. But everything on one side, all of downtown eventually goes to, Pine Creek or the marina, Turney Creek. So everything this goes down and then it splits down the middle.
Now, this study, the 100,000, I imagine that it's not geared towards infrastructure. It's more, it sounds like what you're hoping to do is accomplish a lot through porous. Like if there's renovations or alterations to property, we're going to be asking landlords and property owners to go to porous material, as opposed to addressing our infrastructure. It seems, which is going to be terribly expensive in that area. I can imagine. What are you guys hoping to accomplish? Porous materials or infrastructure? Our infrastructure.
Well, once again, the town has a lot of infrastructure there, and as the once again, I named parking. We have high school, 2 middle schools, train stations, commuter lots. So there's a lot of impervious. So that's where you most likely get the largest, where you probably could make a dent. But even retention, combination, will, maybe the amount of water is okay. Just stall it for an hour, retain it for an hour, let the other drainage go by, and then you could release it. So there's a number of different ways to try to begin to solve the problem.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Anybody else on this one? Representative Perugini.
Yeah, so Joe, if I could understand you correctly, so the rationale for the study and the implementation of the pump station is to increase the differential in elevation from, say, the Post Road and Sanford Street, so that water exits more efficiently. Is that right?
Well, the first study is to get the water out more efficiently, and the second study is just to try to reduce the the quantity of water that's coming at you and the speed that it's coming at you. So if, instead of getting, 10,000 gallons per minute, the first hour, if we could, you get 2,000 gallons per minute for 3 hours is, less and at a slower rate.
Yes, Representative Gale.
Will the study include a comparison between the cost of the previous rentals or future rentals and the cost of permanent ownership? Comparison, like how much, I mean, I'm assuming we'd be saving money in the long run because it's expensive to rent these pumps, correct?
Oh, the first one, the first one's more of a, it's not an economic benefit analysis.
Okay.
It's more of a, in a couple things in the catastrophic flooding, it's a, I don't want to exaggerate, it's a life and death situation, but it's, it's a emergency response. But in addition to that, it'll provide residual benefits, more than several times a year for drainage. The people that, if we don't live in the beach area, we, it's out of sight, out of mind. But there are people that are used to, finding their cars with water up to their rims. So it's.
Great, thank you. Next item is the $300,000 for the Pine Creek Dike elevation plan.
This is one that we've been working on for a while. This one was actually awarded about 6 months ago. And one of the things we've been doing since that time is we originally envisioned it as a match in conjunction with the Army Corps project. So the Army Corps would put up the federal share, and our community development block grant would be our local share. In trying to work on different configurations of a project, we haven't been able to finalize what exactly the limits of where a study would be in Pine Creek, how would the existing dike itself, how far up it would have to go, the salt meadow. So we haven't reached a conclusion on what the study will entail, but the lending agency, Community Development Block Grant, is saying accept this grant now or move on. We're confident that between the Army Corps, Connecticut DEP, other federal monies that are available, we'll have a study for Pine Creek, and possibly that's flexible enough to continue through the west, through the east, through the beach area. But I can't nail down exactly, dot every I and dot every T exactly where the limits will be on that project.
Any questions on this item? Seeing none, thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps up the presentation for our meeting this evening. We will now break down into committees. If space is limited in here, the HR conference room and the superintendent's conference room are both available. Bill, I don't know if you want to take your committee in.